we were talking about Lonesome Dove, and I got
Okay.
minorly
Just
distracted.
tell her to leave you alone.
Mark won't leave me alone. She's mad at me. I got mad and had a hissy fit today because I spilt a bunch of shit this morning. I didn't sleep last night. Full moon. I think the damn full moon thing is.
Dude, that's a real deal.
All right, I'm
I
gonna go.
didn't sleep.
Okay, bye.
Why did I not? Why is it not on though?
Yes.
It is. She said she can see me, but I can't see me.
I see you.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, man, it was. Did you guys by any? No, you wouldn't have been up. Did you not? Was there not?
I took pictures of the moon last night, and it was cloudy, and you could barely see the moon through the clouds.
Did you see it eclipse though?
No, the night before that was so black. We actually had lightning, like big old lightning storm. It was black as 10 feet down inside of a cow, and you couldn't see anything but the lightning.
Well, wait a minute. So you're telling me the eclipse was not before last?
Night before last.
Well, that probably explains why I sat up all night and didn't see the blessed thing this morning.
Yeah, so I've seen people one of my old buddies from high school, she photographed the whole thing, got great photos over there in Jonesboro.
I went outside every 30 minutes last night till about 4 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, it happened the night before that, dude. So last night, when I walked out, and I'm like, well, I didn't get to see the eclipse, so I took photos of the moon with the heavy cloud cover over it.
Is it still red though? Because last night here it was red.
And I'm like, does that still count as an eclipse when you can't see the moon?
I don't know if clouds count. It was a blood moon here. It was certainly blood red before. Now this morning early, like 4 a.m. when I looked, it didn't seem to be so blood red, but the cloud cover was sliding in, so it was starting to get hazy.
Yeah, and people make fun of the whole lunatic thing.
Yeah, but
I am definitely I know when the full moon's here. Every time.
The last 2 times I've not slept, it was a full moon, so I must be getting it.
I probably gave it to you.
Good morning, Maple Bacon, Mr. Mike. How are you, sir?
And good morning, you Canadian. We're gonna come and take all your stuff.
Remember, he's bigger than both of us put together. So
and he'll beat the snot out of both of us.
Both crippled, so it won't be that hard. But he's a good guy. He's a good nature.
He's a good Canadian. I think they probably all are, or most of them.
He said Trump control he wants. You guys, well, I don't want to get too deep into this hole, but gonna roll over and stay there.
This is not a good topic, but that's not what we're talking about. So,
well, that's not what we're talking about.
We're talking about a human being that was much more a human being.
Yeah, just a wee bit. How's Miss Diana and I talked to Mike the other day, and I heard Walter, so I was going to go, oh, hey Walter, and he got all marky. And then the next thing I know, Mike said,
"You had what?
I got Walt. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Walter was hanging around, and I went, whoa, 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 kind of got him going. And then the next thing I know, Mike swings his camera around, and there's Diana sitting on the couch, and there's Walter sitting up, leaning up against her with his big old head on her shoulder. Like he's getting. I would say it was cute. It was. I guess, yeah, it was cute. It was also kind of funny.
You gotta love hound people.
You gotta love hound people. He's big as she is, so
You can't not love hound people.
Mike's not making any comments. He either don't hear me or he don't want to comment on Walter. Usually Walter's hanging out with Mike, I think. The rumor is that he's Mike's boy, really, but Walter's very affectionate. He seemed to be. I would say that's correct.
So I have this Vizsla, and she looks like a red bone coonhound with a tail chopped off.
She does. I've seen her. In fact, I've laid with her on the couch. Anyway,
and she's very super affectionate and like, let me be your buddy. And my buddy Kevin Spence calls her Eileen.
Eileen,
because she comes up against you and leans into you. Like,
well, that's kind of what Walter was doing.
You need to pay some attention to me.
Did you ever hunt with her?
Yeah, but she ain't any good.
Ain't any good. What, Vizsla's point?
Her daggone sister's like one of the finest bird dogs on the planet, and she never got that. Did you hear her train?
I hear train. Loud and clear.
Oh yeah, he's roaring through town right now.
Yeah, he is.
Town.
Even as we speak. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Miss Diana.
And
good morning, Mike. I didn't say good morning, but good morning, buddy.
I was just talking about you and Walter.
We, yeah.
And they're pointers, right?
Which? The Vizslas?
No? Yes?
Vizsla?
Yeah, but
they're pointing dogs.
I thought they were. I wasn't sure, but I thought so.
And when she was a young dog, she might be 9 now.
Yes, you and Walter, Diana.
She kicked up a common snipe out of the creek bottom one day. We were hunting rough grouse, and she kicked up a snipe, and I shot it. And she actually went and found that bird and brought it to me. And I'm like, oh, and she was just a puppy then. I'm like, you're gonna be great. And
was that the last time she ever did it?
Well, I killed a bunch of grouse over her, but she would break and chase them. And then I could hear them flush and hear them flush and hear them flush, and then they were gone, And it's like, even with an e-collar, she would bump birds and chase them. And yeah, she's one of the best buddy dogs I've ever owned, and
She is that.
one of the least proficient at doing her job.
She was going to do. Diana, let me explain something, man. About you and Walter. I was telling Mark about how when I was talking to you guys the other night, Mike swung his phone around and I could see you. That's when Walter was leaning up against you with his head on your shoulder. That's what got us talking about.
Which is always a good thing.
Which is a good thing, yeah. That's what got us talking about dogs.
Well, we were almost to get. I think my wife's talked herself out of it, but we were gonna get a rescue dog today.
What kind? Just a mother?
Named Wolfgang.
Named Wolfgang.
And he's a Pomeranian, I think.
Oh, little dog.
Yeah, just a little dog.
You know, some Pomeranians are really yappy, but I've seen a couple that weren't at all.
Well, he's a little yappy, apparently, and they're worried about the fact that we've got 5 other, dogs.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Walter is a pain in the A. Apparently, the AT alternate, all, then
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you think I know those words?
And I've got,
I do.
so I have a soft spot in my heart for dogs,
Yeah.
and I'd adopt them all if I could. But they're not going to come to my house and say, what kind of facilities do you have for the dog or whatever?
Do they do that?
Because I don't like that.
Well, yeah. Cool.
It ain't none of their damn business. If I take their dog for free,
Well, the guy across the road here,
I don't charge them nothing. It ain't none of their damn business.
The guy across the road, or the guy, man and wife, they do dog rescue, and they've got that big Pyrenees and some other ones.
Yeah.
They've got 2 litters right now, pups, different mixed breeds, and I want to go over and look at them, but I'm scared to.
Well, they've got a border collie, Australian Shepherd mix at this same place right now, and I'd be like, no, I don't even need to see that dog, because I'd bring it home.
I'd kind of like to have another little Aussie, but it's been many years since that was the first dog Brenda and I had together, was an Aussie. A lot of rescuers here do a home check to make sure the dog isn't going to be used for fighting. And Diane, I get Mark's point, but in some places that's not a bad idea. That was a real problem for a while in some rescues. In some places that they were doing that, they'd go in and record dog, or they'd take dogs in, and then next thing you know, they'd end up at the city dump.
But a Pomeranian wouldn't be in that league.
No, it wouldn't.
But he'd probably, he's an 8-year-old dog, and he'd probably end up doing a little fighting till they squared it away. And then it'd be squared away.
Mike, Teddy, oh yeah, at your house, I get it. New dog and all. Yeah, they have to make their spot. Mike, that's a good question. Probably not that crazy about the idea at this point. But I told him the other day, if he didn't get his ass out here to the library pretty soon, I might get me a dog that would.
He might get replaced by a dog.
Walter's still sleeping with our son.
You need a critter out there in your library.
I do. Well, if it
has to be a Labrador or a Border Collie or something like that, then so be it.
Well,
So we've been introducing. So Caitlin's got a black cat, black as midnight, like evil. You need to put the cross on the deal. Black as midnight cat right now, named Alistair, but I call him Al because I'm not going to say Alistair.
Too much trouble. Is there another?
And Hank, my flat-coated border collie male, he sits at her door because the cat can reach underneath the door. And he gives him a present every day. He puts out one of his little knitted mice.
Yeah.
He every single day puts one of those out for Hank.
Really?
And but Hank's intense, and I'm just like, I'm not sure how this is going to go down. But we've been over the last month, we've been bringing the cat out and letting Hank hang out with him, and so far so good.
Well,
He's still intense. Like, what are you doing, dude? And and he follows him around and walls him around, and I'm like, be careful on the woolen part. But
yeah, don't wool too hard. But cats at our house have never had a lot of choice because the girls have always had since they moved out on their own have always had a dog,
right,
one or two. So they always bring them over when they come visit.
but they're always they all end in oodle, I bet.
No. Jennifer had first one she had. They had a Shih Tzu for a long time. She is
Well, that don't even count.
well, but still, it does on the. I agree. It did on the yappy part. Oh my God! And that dog, poor Philip, would come over to the house, and if that dog was around, she would not stop barking at Phil. The only person he was that way to was Phil. Bless his heart. The
Diane is asking how many dogs I have. I have this many.
he could have had this many almost.
And I have had
That
this many.
but
we're actually kind of dog poor right now. We only got 5. We've had way more than that.
I'm trying to think how many you had when I was out there last year. Was it 5
Just
or
5.
4?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the same bunch that's still here.
Walter, not Walter.
Well, I don't. Did you meet Penny?
Yeah.
We might have only had 4.
No, Penny was there. Penny was
Okay.
there because she was, because
She was
Penny
a
was
puppy.
there. Yeah, she was still a puppy. And Boudreaux wasn't all that old. I mean, he wasn't that old. I'm not sure how many
Yeah,
months.
he's just a year older than she is. So,
But Kelly's got a poodle, big size, full grown poodle, and has had 2 other dogs since then. And they had I don't know that Teddy was ever around, but Brad, Kelly's husband, had what they call them, a
the Catahoula.
Catahoula, and he was good with cats. So Brad did a really good job of training that dog. Man, you talk about a stout dog. Well, your dad's got one or had one.
2. He's had 2 of them in there, and Penny she's 3/4 border collie, 1/8 Kelpie,
Yeah.
and 1/8 Catahoula.
Huh. That's a strange
So,
mix.
and she looks just like Hank, except she's liver colored instead of black.
All right.
Look, I mean, you'd think they were out of the same litter, but
Are they the same size now, or is Hank still bigger?
no, Hank's gonna always be way bigger than she is, but she's the perfect size dog.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know she'd grown up to his height.
She stopped
Hank's a long-legged.
10 miles or 10 miles, 10 pounds less than
Hank.
Hank.
Hank. And this, I'm sure they're all like this, but I've been used to seeing, long-haired border collies more, and Hank looks so much taller than them, and I don't know if that's just because of the hair difference, or if they really are taller.
So I had my best friend in the world was Happy. He was a longer haired, longer coated border collie, and he was about the exact same size as Hank. But he had long hair, and so they just looked different. But those flat coated dogs they just look hard, you know, like they can do some stuff, and they can.
Yeah, I mean, they are, because since you can see them, their body and their physique and everything, they're a different looking dog.
Well, and you know, and they're the original breed. The original breed was a flat coated dog, and we had, heck, I don't know, 30 or 40 cows on us one day, and Caitlin was like, "Dad, the cows are on." And I'm like, "Well, take Hank out there and get him out." And she went out there, and it wasn't going well, wasn't happening. She needed the old man out there to like guide.
I'm sure he lived.
And she made a very interesting observation. She goes, "You know, he works way better when he's got Penny with him. The two of them together,
Yeah,
like, work those cattle like brilliantly." And I'm like, you know, you're probably right. And I just didn't want her taking all the dogs out, you know, and but
well, you know, they work them.
when Dad's out there, Hank works just fine because
Well, he knows
he listens to Dad.
well, and that's because you've always been around him.
And I can tell him, lay down, and he'll drop down to the ground. Okay, push him up, and he'll push him up. All right, lay down. Because in this particular case, they had crossed a cattle guard where ungulates can break their legs,
right,
if you push them too hard. And
was it iced over? Or they just walked across?
it was full of snow.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, you know, if you hit a soft spot, you got a busted leg or a bad injury. And I just had to work him through that, like, move up, lay down, move up, lay down.
I have a cattle guard question.
Well, they pay those guys way too much.
Well, cattle guards. Very funny.
That's a Clinton joke.
Is
that
it?
was a joke that was made about Bill Clinton when he was talking about how much money the BLM was spending on cattle guards, and he's like, "That's a joke. That's just a joke." And it's like, well, they're not actual guards. The Nebraskans call them auto gates.
Auto gates
instead of cattle guards. Everybody else in the world calls them a cattle guard. And
well, I have a question. When I've been out west, which was the first time I ever saw one, was when I went out to New Mexico, probably the first time, maybe, I don't know. But then
that was a zillion years ago.
Yeah, and so I've known what they were for a long time. But out west, all the ones I ever remember seeing were pipe round. Have you
they
ever?
Are pipe.
Well, not all.
I know they're not all that way, but that's the ones that are best.
Well, I probably agree with that, but I had one on a piece of our property that I was working on getting replaced, and it was concrete.
Oh yeah, I've seen a few of those.
They set in place and with a culvert underneath, kind of thing, and so I don't know, but I wondered how well they work, because you know there's kind of a flat surface. You'd think that the cow would just walk right over it.
Well, I have a mule that would just he can do it over a regular cattle guard, a pipe cattle guard. He can just like tiptoe across the tulips, you know, and he's gone.
He could probably walk down the wire fence.
And thank God he doesn't do that very often, but he can.
I don't know, Brenda. I was kind of hanging around to see if anybody else was going to show up, but maybe nobody's coming today. Maybe they heard I didn't get any sleep and I was hateful this morning. Maybe they just didn't come in. I got mad. I dropped something spilled a cup full of something all over the damn living room floor this morning.
It's daylight changing time.
Maybe that's it. Well, like I said, I didn't get any sleep last night.
Nobody's right now. It'll be a month or two.
Because I stayed up all night to see the eclipse. I swear I looked that up last night on the internet. I thought I had it all figured out.
It was the night before last,
I
dude.
get that. By 4 o'clock this morning, I had pretty much sussed that out. Tina and Chuck are at a parade, and Carlos out with a friend. Oh, Carol's out with a friend. Oh man, well that knocks 3 out right there.
My glasses are dirty, and I looked over and I saw Carol is out with a tractor.
I don't know about a tractor, but well, if everybody else ain't gonna be here, let's just I'll just go ahead and do my show, and so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And I have something. I'm gonna try to save something for at the end. I've got some photographs I really want to share, and I don't know whether to do it now or later, but I think I want to do them later. So let me get this rocking and rolling. Who are you laughing at?
Diana. she's laughing at me and putting tractor symbols in it.
Oh.
I just glanced over there and I'm like, why did I see friend as a tractor? Because a tractor is your friend.
Because a tractor is your friend. Of course it is. All right, here we go.
There he is.
I was working on some other things this week, and I couldn't get it all put together because I was trying to research. And it made me think of this gentleman, and so I decided that I was going to talk about him because he played I think an important role in my life.
A significant role in both our lives.
Maybe significant's a better word. So we're going to talk about Fred Bear and celebrate slightly belated birthday. He was born on March 5th. I didn't realize that till I did this work. So, happy birthday to Fred. But anyway, let's me click along here. I'm going to do all this stuff, and you guys all know about that. But I also wanted to do a pre-sale.
7 words.
What?
7 words.
Yeah, 7 words in the comments. That's the key. I also wanted to do a little St. Patty's Day, which is probably, I guess, maybe that's where Tina and Chuck are. And so I wanted to do a little bit of that due to my Irish ancestry and all that. I love this quote. I put this little quote at the bottom of the page. It says, "People will not look forward to posterity who never look backward to their ancestors." I think
seriously,
that's what that says at the bottom of the page. People will not look forward to posterity who never look backward to their ancestors.
Oh, who never.
Yeah. So on St. Patrick's Day, today marks the beginning of the St. Patrick's Day festival. In this is all in Ireland. I forgot to say that. I picked out stuff that happened in Irish history because of today. So, for example, in Dublin today, the St. Patrick's Day festival, which is a major event, runs from the 15th to starting today and runs through the 17th, which is Monday. And includes their famous parade on the 17th. And don't forget to wear your green. And Northern Ireland also has parades in Belfast and Derry. Now, I read that Northern Ireland doesn't do as much about St. Patty's Day except in these 2 cities. But today in Irish history, the first declaration of indulgence suspending penal laws against Catholics and dissenters is issued by Charles II. And that's because, they were supposed, the other king, Henry VIII, said they were all going to be Anglicans and the Irish said, "The hell you say?" So, which is that should never been an issue. But anyway, in
A
1813,
declaration of indulgence. That
no,
means he forgave them.
or you're supposed to not persecute them so badly, is the way I took it, because they did. That's for sure. In 1813, in the British House of Commons, Sir Eric, I don't know how this is pronounced, Cote, the Younger, that was an important part, MP for, I can never get these words right, so bear with me, Ballynakill and Maryborough, proposes the abolition of flogging in the army. Now, I think that's important because I'm pretty sure that this army in 1813 would have been the British Army, and they were probably flogging the Irish soldiers, because that was, if I've read that and heard that if you Irishman to be in the army, you had to be do what?
I'm no bloody pommy.
But anyway, they outlawed flogging, or he wanted them to abolish flogging in the army. And like I said, I think that's probably because it was the British Army back then, and they didn't like they used the Irish like dogs, but they didn't always, or worked them like mules, but they didn't always like them. Prominent Irish civil rights solicitor Rosemary Nelson was killed by a loyalist car bomb on this date, 1999, excuse me. And I said that twice for some reason. Why did I do that?
Because it's important.
Well, it is, but I didn't mean to say it twice, even if it is important. So now, what we were going to talk about is this man right here, Fred Bear
Himself.
Who we call himself, and I'll explain that. Well, I'll explain that now. The reason we came up with the himself is because there's also a gentleman that wrote about archery and I don't know, did G. Fred make bows? He didn't, did he?
G. Fred?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, G. Fred, there's a guy that we call Asbel. And we talked about him a lot, kind of in conjunction with Fred Bear. So Fred Bear became Fred himself because he's the original, the OG, if you will. And Fred didn't really start bow hunting until he was about 29, and he didn't kill his first deer, I think, with a bow till he was 33. And that's significant because he went on to do way more hunting than I'll ever get to do in my lifetime. He became a world traveler. He was one of the first outdoor hunting film producers to come along in the 40s and 50s. I guess it really got going after the war in the 50s. And he was the founder of Bear Archery. And unfortunately, and he was born in Pennsylvania, but he lived a good part of his life in Grayling, Michigan, which is where everything was when I was growing up. If you got something, a Fred Bear Archery piece of equipment, it came from Grayling, Michigan. But then, I don't know, in the early 90s, they up and moved to Gainesville, Florida. Maybe he got tired of the cold weather. I don't know. But anyway, they moved to Gainesville, and that's where Fred passed away. But he wasn't buried there or anything. He was cremated, and they spread his ashes in some of his favorite fly fishing and hunting areas up in Michigan, in the UP. So I thought that was pretty cool. He was born in Franklin County, Pennsylvania. And he was the second of 3 children. I never knew this. Again, I've learned so much. He moved to Detroit, Michigan when he was he was still in his teens, I believe, because he dropped out of school to go to work, which makes all what he did even more impressive, because once he got out of school and started working, he started teaching himself, and he was self-taught after that. And he knew a lot. I mean, he even did like engineering kind of work for different people. He worked for the Chrysler Company as a glue maker, which I think is significant for what he does later. And then he worked for Ford Motor Company as a wood carver, which also probably played a role in how he learned how to make bows. and he operated. And then from 29 to 33, he operated a plant. I don't know if it was the fourth plant or if it was one after that, and it burned down. And being in the Depression, things just kind of, there wasn't no rebuilding it. So then he had to move on and start doing some other stuff. So he did lots of stuff growing, and from the time he was about 16 until he was in his late 20s, and then he started. I'm not sure exactly how he got to bow hunting. Oh yeah, I do. Art Young.
Yeah, Pope and Young were his.
Yeah, Pope and Young were his. He read their book because they hadn't, that Pope and Young stuff hadn't been around that long. When he started.
Yeah, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, 20, 30. Well, I don't consider that long, but yeah. And he started bow hunting, and then he actually, I think it's raining.
Inside the library?
No, but it suddenly got loud, like there's something pounding on the roof. I hope not. Not.
It's snowing here, so go ahead.
I didn't want to tell you it was in the 70s here yesterday.
Yeah, whatever.
I didn't like it.
Blow it out your backside.
It's too hot, to be honest. Anyway,
it's 20 something here right now. So
he started learning how to make bows, and he and another fellow went into business after this plant burned down. They tried to start up something on their own, and he had a bunch of tools and stuff left over from some of his previous jobs. Yeah, Brenda says it's raining outside. And they built a shop, and they were gluing up. They were actually gluing up like vinyl tire covers for one of the car manufacturers and some other stuff. And they were also making signs, like vinyl signs. But between all the tools for that kind of work, he had one little spot in his shop where he worked on bows when he had time or took a notion. Now the other guy was never really into archery, so eventually they split up. Fred started his own place, and which eventually became Bear Archery, and the other guy, actually, I read somewhere else that guy kept that business going, and later on they got back together and did some other stuff together. So that wasn't a bad party, and Fred wanted to do his archery stuff, and so I thought that was kind of cool. And these are just some early pictures of Fred hunting in Upper Michigan. If I read this correctly, Mark, the biggest whitetail that Fred ever killed was with a rifle when he was 16.
Yeah,
I think he was 16, and that's when he started hunting. He said he thought that was too easy. He said he literally just walked into the woods and walked up, and there's this big buck, and he shot him and took him home. And he said that's when all the work started. And after that, he said, I thought that was too easy, so he started bow hunting. And I got a picture here, next picture. That's Art Young in the middle there. He actually started hanging out with Art. He read his book and then met him and hung out with him some, and that's kind of what got him started. And you'll see there that Fred is holding what is known as a longbow, which is what he started making early on, and that's what Art Young shot. But Fred became more famous for his recurve bows, which is, I'll show you one in a minute.
Yeah, but later.
Later. And those are just pictures and there's a sign that says father of bow hunting. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what Fred did do with bow hunting was he started in Michigan, and he actually got the sport built up to where they allowed them to have a hunting season, an archery season in Michigan in 2 counties. And after that proved successful, they opened it up more to the state. And then eventually it started spreading out to other states. I'm not sure when the first bow season was here. I don't know. Was there ever an issue out there?
I don't know, dude. They were just allowed to hunt during regular seasons for years.
Yeah, that's true.
And archers were finally look, we're at a disadvantage. We need our own season.
Right.
And in Wyoming, like in my state, it's just like, okay, we'll give you the month of September, which nobody hunted in the old days.
Right.
And I mean, sheep hunters hunted mountain sheep in September, but there wasn't any rifle hunting of much going on during September. So they're like, yeah, you can have this month. You know, and in some states, they give you like the month before rifle season and then a later month during the rut. And that doesn't happen everywhere. It certainly doesn't happen here. But do you have anything about him, the fact that he shot his bow left-handed?
Yeah, I do. Well, there's a picture of him shooting it left-handed.
Well, I see him there, but I
Yeah,
just
left-handed.
I just wondered if you know the reason why he shot his bow. He wasn't left eye dominant.
I do know, but now I'm not going to. You know, you've asked me, and I've got something else on my mind, so I forget. Was it? Did he lose an eye?
No, he lost a finger.
Finger.
He
Yeah.
lost a finger in a corn picker when he was a boy. Like chopped it clear off, and there you go. You don't get to shoot right-handed like you want to shoot.
Right.
You gotta teach yourself to shoot left-handed. And that's amazing to me, just that part.
Yeah. Well, I did. Yeah, I forgot about that. So good point. And you know, you can see he's shooting with both eyes open, and as he said, he considered himself a snap shooter. So, and you know what that we do that too, and I don't know if that made a difference or helped him with that eye dominance issue or not, but maybe
I don't know. I can't even hardly make my body like.
draw left-handed.
I can draw my bow left-handed, but I don't like it. It doesn't feel natural at all.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't feel natural at all.
And it's just amazing to me that he did that and what he accomplished.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, yeah, and he accomplished a lot. Did you tell me recently that you and I had this conversation that either you or somebody else was shooting was shooting right-handed, but shooting on the opposite shelf or the opposite side of the bow than we normally shoot?
Well, I do that with the thumb ring when I'm horseback.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the way they shot.
Comanche shot that way.
Well, the Comanches didn't use a thumb ring. They just used a kind of a pinch and three fingers under, kind of a draw. But the Mongolians hunted, you know, they had a thumb ring made out of horn, typically, or ivory. And you just hook that on your bowstring and holler back. But they shoot off the other side of the bow. And they could shoot a gazillion arrows in a real quick succession.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's why the only reason Texans ever like stayed in Texas was because of the 6-shooter.
That's because
that's it. I mean, that literally, like the technological invention that allowed Texans to become Texans was a revolver. Because Comanches could fire arrows so fast and so accurately that they, you know, like a single shot rifle or whatever, wouldn't keep up with them.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, that's a squirrel.
No, that's a good squirrel though.
But Tina's not here to count them, so okay.
Well, we can get away with it that way, but you're going to show me what I get back out there someday. You're going to show me how to do that with the ring. I've never tried that.
It's just, you just hook your thumb under it and pull her back, let her go. It's cool.
So here's some of the things that Fred accomplished in his lifetime as far as bow archery goes. And while there were natives and probably all over the world that did a lot of these same kind of things, Europeans, Westerners hadn't really done it. And for example, he killed at one time. He had taken the largest Kodiak grizzly that was on record, and Cape Buffalo, and he actually shot an elephant. I can't remember the reason why they did, but he took it with an arrow, and he killed all these animals. Died with one shot, which most people don't think is possible, but he was just that good. The bottom picture down there is him with a caribou or a reindeer, if you wish, but a caribou, and that sheet beside it is the Pope and Young Club scoring sheet to tell how big it is, how they rank them. It's got numbers of points and size of antlers and length and just all kinds of stuff. The picture on the left is just a picture of him in camp, but it does look like he's got a set of ribs hanging there to be cooked over a fire, which there's not really a fire there that I see. But there's his bow and his arrows and just some. That looks like a sled laying there beside him. What I thought was interesting, Marco, look in the background. I'm going to make this bigger. There's a lean-to A-frame looking something in the background back there. It could have been where they hung up deer carcasses when they were skinning them.
That's a meat pole.
It might be. I like that little axe he's got stuck in that stump there. That's a nice size little axe.
Little Hudson Bay axe.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that. It does look like a sled.
Yeah, it is. I didn't even realize that till just now.
They must have been hauling meat out on that or something.
Be kind of hard in that dry ground.
Yeah, no kidding.
It certainly wouldn't slide very easily.
That's sure a good looking bow, though.
Sure is. And look, and
a good looking plaid shirt.
Yeah.
And he always wore berries or something in his hat, in his fedora. He always wore a fedora.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he always had like a cluster of berries or a sprig of some kind. Yeah, that's the one. That's you always wore that when we hunted. That was
I did. And that's why, because I figured if it was good enough for Fred himself, it ought to be good enough for me.
And there he is, bow fishing.
Bow fishing. They said once he started shooting a bow, he pretty much hunted. I mean, that's just what he did. He fished with it. Now he did fly fish too, but he fished with his bow. He hunted with his bow.
But I mean, that's a big old carp.
Yeah, it's a big old carp.
It needs to be shot.
And in doing this, he started making things like the bow fishing reel. And if you look on that example where he's holding the carp mark, that looks like a square block he's got. But then he created this one at the bottom that's was round and pretty simple, and you just wrap it.
Remember, we used to just tie our line off to the thwart in the canoe.
I know.
And shoot.
And just lay it in the floor.
Lay it in the floor of the canoe and shoot. And we didn't even have no bow fishing reels, and we were making our own arrows.
Yeah, we certainly were. and this is something else that I thought was really cool. You see him in videos and stuff sometimes, right, packing in with a horse. He learned to ride a horse by joining
Carlisle. Really?
Carlisle, Pennsylvania National Guard Cavalry, which was in the 30s, I believe, or
at age 16.
He was 16 when he joined up. Well, that would have been 1902.
Yeah.
And so 1918. Well, right at the end of World War I. And that's how he learned to ride a horse. And later on, they said it came in handy because in a lot of his hunting travels, he was able to ride horse to go horseback. And I never knew that.
I'm glad they never sent him to France.
Well, no, he missed that one. I'm glad too. Okay, here's a bunch of things that he created that nobody else had really been making at that time to help improve bow hunting. there's something really significant about this. I'm going to tell you just in a minute. 1937, he had a patent for an archery glove. It was the first named archery glove that people could just go buy.
Three fingers.
Yeah, 3 fingers. He invented the fiberglass bow making system. That was the thing he developed. I'm sure all that came down from all that stuff he learned working in the auto industry.
Exactly.
He had that bow quiver patent, which was for something that looked a little bit like this.
That is a bear quiver.
Yes, it is a bear quiver, and
but
it's
not the original.
not the original. No, the original didn't have this, but this is similar. But this was one of his patents. And then he had also, this is more bow patents, composite bow. Again, he used wood and then laminated it with fiberglass to make it get the flex and the stronger modern recurve, if you will. And he's got 2 or 3 patents on that. The working recurve limb patent, I believe, is for his takedown limbs, just the limbs themselves.
Yeah.
And then he also, in 1956, he invented the Bear razor head broadhead. And this is these are his broadheads, but these are later models. These aren't the originals. They're just like the originals, except the materials. The originals were green.
Kind of a greenish gold color. I got a whole stack of them out in my shop.
Well, I had some. Oh,
They're still the best broadheads I think ever made.
This was a fishing broadhead. You know how you can tell? It had to be
Because
barbed it a little bit.
it's all rusty.
And it's all rusty, yeah. But this was the broadheads he designed.
We probably shot that one into a gar.
Well, it looks kind of bloody. It might have been.
Did we? Is there notches cut in it? If there's not,
No, there's notches. Yeah, that's why I said there's notches in the back.
Oh yeah, then we made that to make it hang in the fish
to go gar shooting with. So here's
I can't believe you still have some of those.
that's
many decades ago, dude.
That's many decades ago. And that may be the only one that's modified that's left.
You don't let that go.
No, I'm not gonna let it go.
You gotta will that to me. Or
okay.
Or if I go first, you got to find somebody that would appreciate that.
I'll do my best to do that.
You don't give that away to somebody that's just gonna throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, they gotta appreciate what it was and what it was for. I had something in my ear.
Your wife was so mad at us that day.
Yeah, well, yeah. We were kind of hard to find.
Well, yeah, no. Well, when you go around the corner of the river and then there's no water in the river and you're canoeing for 25 miles.
Or walking for 20.
You're going to walk most of it. That dragging a canoe
is not.
That extends the length of the trip.
A significant amount.
And no cellular devices, no nothing.
No. Brenda, do you recall that day? We called you. We got out pulled the canoe over to the bank and walked out and
and called.
Found a telephone and we called her. And then it took her a while to find us because, we weren't exactly at
where we were supposed to be.
Yeah. Here's the cool thing. Anyway,
we were tired.
Oh God, were we
and
tired.
Hungry and thirsty.
Another cool thing about these patents, and I didn't know this. He never locked down his patents for anything because he believed that if all his patents other people should be able to use his designs and his processes to help improve archery and to build the sport of bow hunting. So he let people they could use. He never went seriously.
So
never
it wasn't a real patent then. I mean, he didn't lock it down to where they couldn't
right. He had
copy what he was doing.
right, but he had it. I guess it's documented. All the drawings, everything's there. But no, he never went after. He didn't. He didn't lock them down so people could use them. He said he wanted people to be able to take his ideas and expand on them and improve bow hunting, and that was his.
That's way
Just
cool.
not me. Another thing that he what's the word I'm looking for? Contributed to the sport or the hobby, or I don't even know it.
Well, it's like Dad and those guys back in the 60s, like fighting for muzzleloading seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that just for the good of all.
Right.
You know?
And just like archery, things had to come along and kind of mess that up too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, just like archery.
yeah. Anyway, that's another story.
Let's throw cross guns in the.
Do what?
Let's throw a cross gun in the archery season.
Yeah.
Sons
And
of.
they can shoot about
Sons of.
bucks. So anyway, he was cool in that way. I just really thought that was special, and not very many people would do that. I mean, most of the reason they do a patent is so nobody can do that, and he wanted it to be out. I think he got the patent so the information would be out there and be available. It set me. Oh, Brenda's talking about her back. Okay, we'll keep going. And again, I've just got some. One of the things that he used to say was that the favorite proving grounds for bear archery equipment was the UP and the areas where he really liked to hunt. And one of his favorite hunting areas was called, oh hell, I wrote it down here somewhere. Grouse Haven.
Grouse Haven, yep.
Which wasn't his. I thought it was his. It wasn't his. It was a friend of his, but that was one of the places he always went up there to hunt. And he said he thought that was the best proving grounds for all of his equipment was out in the woods.
Well, and remember, he used to go out and he would shoot one arrow a day.
Yeah, just to.
I mean, he would shoot way more than that when he was doing serious target practice or whatever, but every day he shot at least one arrow, and one arrow a day. It's like, okay, you're out there hunting deer. You're going to shoot one arrow probably.
If that.
Yeah. And
you shoot one, you may not get it.
Better be right the first time, not the second time. Although I've killed a lot of deer with a second arrow, so.
He also, I just never knew much about this, but he also, and I guess this is how he actually, well, not how he got into it, but once he got into shooting a bow, he also was like the Michigan State champion for target archery for several years.
Right.
He was actually a really good shot.
He was handy.
Yeah, he was handy. That's one way to put it.
And shooting off the wrong eye. Again, that still amazes me. I couldn't, if I was shooting left hand, I mean, I'd have to adjust everything I look at. And I don't really look at much, just the critter mostly.
You just got to try to focus on that spot.
Like that spot, that's all I'm focusing on. And I don't have to think about it. And doing that left-handed just would maybe I'd be better. If
Yeah, they say some people.
Maybe I'd miss less if I.
Maybe. They say that some people that like bat, if they play baseball or softball,
Yeah,
right-handed, they say a lot of people can actually play golf better left-handed.
yeah,
because they create new, what's the word? Instead of picking up bad habits from swinging a bat, people try to swing a golf club like they do a bat, and it doesn't work that way. And so you get around that by doing that.
That's hilarious because we went to the golf course one time. Sammy and I did. My son and I did one time. And the son-in-law is he's the golf coach in Kimmer. So he's serious about it. And the other son-in-law was on the golf team in Kimmer before when he was in high school.
So where does Sammy fit into that?
He and I, neither one of us fit into that at all.
Okay, well, I knew you did.
But we went to the golf course one time with the son-in-laws, the brother-in-laws, son-in-laws, and Jonathan, the oldest son-in-law, the golf coach, teed up a ball for him there, and Sammy swung at it, and it looked like he was playing baseball again in 1985. It was just, I'm like, that was the most beautiful
swing
I've ever seen, and he missed the ball entirely.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And it was like, dude, I guess we're supposed to be trying to hit that little golf thing around that golf egg, and we're not playing baseball.
Let me tell you another story.
And then I tried to get the older son-in-law.
That one.
I'm like, you need to let us have an archery golf day on the golf course out here.
Yeah.
Like one day a week, we can have an archery golf. And he didn't get it. And I'm like, it's just like your game, except, we're shooting at Agincourt.
So let me get back to this minute.
Hey, Dave's in the house.
Hey, Dave, welcome in. Because because Fred himself here got into all these hunting trips and all this kind of stuff, he took a big trip to, I think, Alaska to bear hunt one time. And he got there and his bow didn't get there. His bow or his arrow or nothing. And because he shot left-handed, nobody up there that he knew was going to have a left-handed bow. So he kind of had to blow it off. So that's what triggered him to start making the takedown bow. He wanted to have a bow that he could disassemble and put under the seat of his airplane. And he's flying to put under the seat of his airplane. And that's called a takedown bow. You take the limbs off and you end up, I've got one over here. It's not one of his, but somebody else's. And you can put it in a small case and he could carry it on board for carry-on luggage. And Mark's gone, and I was going to show him
I'm here.
He'll be back.
I was gonna pull out a takedown bow.
Oh, well, yeah, you got one you took
that I made for Africa. It's got 2 pieces, 2 limbs,
which makes it much shorter.
You can pack it up in a nice little tight package, and then you reassemble it, and then it's a much longer package
to shoot
for shooting purposes. Why aren't you going in there? There we go.
That's cool.
Then it goes to a whole long bow. You take it apart, and there you go.
That's got African dirt on it. So let me tell you how when he first started doing this, Mark, the first one he ever built. Imagine this is the 2 bow halves, and to hook them together, this one had a hook on it, kind of a spring-loaded hook latch.
And I've seen those where they snap together in the middle.
Yeah, and then you pull it together, And then when you string it, the bowstring pulls those, tightens that joint. And that was his first try, but he said that proved a bit fragile compared to some of the others. And he eventually got to the one he had where, he took the limbs off. They had a riser, and the limbs were slotted so that they always fit in the exact same spot, bolting them down, which led to a whole world of people building almost that exact same bow, which is an example of how he didn't patent that stuff to keep people from learning. I mean,
Yeah, so the riser's the center part of the bow that's got the bow shelf that you shoot an arrow off of.
you talk, I'll be right back.
And then he would screw the limbs with these really cool big heavy duty screws into the limb or the working part of the bow. And so it's a 3-piece bow if you look at it that way.
Yeah,
It's got a riser in the middle and 2 limbs that work, that do all the work. And he was the master at that.
Yeah, and then later, other people, Black Widow and several other bow companies came, just worked on that same idea. Now, along the lines of what Mark's got, I have this. What I didn't even realize how cool this was when I first found it. Well, actually, I did. I found this at a flea market in Jonesboro, I believe. It might have been in Nashville, but I think this was in Jonesboro. Somebody just laying on a table one day. Anyway, and inside this case, this is a travel case, kind of like what Fred had originally. And if you undo this one's a little bit longer. His 3-piece unit would be a little more compact. This one is a takedown bow built by the Ben Pearson Company. I'm not sure exactly what year this was made, but it hooks together a little differently. And this one's got unfortunately,
Damn at a flea market.
what?
Oh, we spent a lot of times at flea markets.
Yeah, I used to.
That's where you got your 8 tracks.
Yeah.
Or your 1972 Mustang. That's where you got your 8 tracks from.
It's also where you got your really cool books if you knew the right flea market.
And you could buy like maple syrup and things like that. But
yeah, you could. Now, the way Ben Pearson did his takedown was he put this aluminum milled machine joint in the middle, and this one slides together, like this. Not like I did at that time, but more like this. Come on, go in there. And then it had this pin, tapered pin that you screwed in from this side.
And you had a bow that was half the length that you could fly with.
Yeah, now you've got a solid bow. So this was
got a real bow.
This was somebody else's idea of how to do a takedown, but Fred Bear's original ones were similar to this. In fact, he built one that had a joint not like this, but not so different either. But I've never seen one of those in real life. So
yeah, most of his takedowns eventually, like I said,
became
the riser. So show them the riser. Is it still together?
Yeah. Hang on.
Show them what I'm talking about. The riser.
This if you can see, let me back up here a minute.
Yeah, you're perfect.
From here to here, this center part, the thick part, actually here to here, that's the riser. That's the main body of a bow. Now this
right over Tim's face is the riser.
Yeah, right here.
And then the limbs are the parts away from the riser. And Fred, his eventual design was the riser would be 1 piece, and the 2 limbs would be 2 more pieces. And then they would screw into that riser that was solid. It didn't have a joint in the middle. And it was a beautiful design.
Well, one of the really cool things about that design was you could have interchangeable limbs. So if you wanted to shoot a bow, it was 55 pounds, you could put a set of 55-pound limbs. Or if your kid wanted to start learning to shoot, you could put like 35-pound limbs in it,
Right.
shoot, which was really smart. I mean, again, another way to grow the sport, which is, I think, what he thought about all the time. And he, I mean, he even all these films and a lot of these hunts he did for that same reason. But he also said that he really liked the archery business because it gave him an excuse to spend all his time out hunting. So,
so do you talk about the kid bows?
I'm getting ready to.
Oh, okay. I'm not stealing thunder. I'm
No,
just
not yet.
I'm wondering if you're going to talk about them because I had a gazillion of them.
Yeah, I've got a couple laying back here, or at least one. So, Fred had 10 commandments. I thought these were really cool, and I liked that painting that somebody did down in the bottom corner. He said, "Don't step on anything you can step over. Don't look for deer, look for movement. And remember, it's what they're looking for too. Always approach from downwind. In the cool of the day, move uphill. In the heat of the day, move downhill. The best camouflage pattern is called sit down and be quiet." I love that one. He said, "Your grandpa hunted deer in a red plaid coat. Think about that for a second. Everybody thinks you got to have on camo from head to toe. And you don't really if you know how, if you're patient and you're move slowly and you're quiet. Camo helps, sure, and I've hunted in a lot of camo, and I've had deer walk right up to me.
This is my camo now, and I've killed an awful lot of animals bow hunting in this camo. It's just black and gray and white plaid.
That's perfect colors though for outdoors, which you and I proved years ago, I think. And take only the gear of the field that allows you to hunt longer, harder, and smarter. A rainstorm isn't a reason to quit the hunt; it's a reason to stay. Camouflage your appearance, your sound, and your scent. So
the rainstorm part, I'm thinking about Catoosa.
Oh God, yeah.
When we found the
skin,
I missed that little buck.
Oh yeah, well, it was pouring rain though.
It was absolutely torrential downpour rain, and that buck came up to me, and I'm like, "Well, heck, I can shoot this buck," and I missed him, and it was so wet. That was such a wet hunt, but he was still out and about doing his thing.
Oh yeah,
and so was I. I just wasn't good as he was.
I wonder if Fred Bear ever, I don't remember ever seeing this, but you might have. I wonder if he ever had something to put on his fletchings to keep them dry or to keep them from getting so wet.
I don't know. I always used a bread sack.
Well, me too, but you know, there's other things out there. People did use different things, but I don't know if I ever.
There's guys that use like some kind of silicone like spray.
Yeah.
To keep a feather dry, but I never did that. I just used a bread sack. But
so anyway, hunt where the deer are, not where you think they are, and then next year's hunt begins the minute after this season hunt ends. And that's when I was a hunter and hunted all the time. That's exactly how that works. And then Fred became a legend, if you will, in his own way, in Michigan especially. And there were all kinds of magazine articles about him. And this one is about when he opened up his original museum. This was in 1968. This is in Grayling, Michigan. And that's a picture of it out front, and a great big old bear statue. He had this mounted on the wall. A prairie pike. I love that. That's better than a jackalope, I think. Hey, John. I meant to say, hey, John. And that bottom picture is just a view of the inside of his museum at that time. I was sad, to me, a sad story about this in a minute. And this was just, welcome to the Fred Bear Museum, free admission, and bring your camera. And up here is just more talking about that and grayling. And this was one of the exhibits now that he had. And look at all those different kinds of bows laying back there on the wall, hanging on the wall. He evidently didn't know how to string them and set them in the corner to season them. So this was up there, and this was kind of a big deal to the local folk in Michigan. Here's even a map.
Mr. John's in the house, by the way.
Yeah, I said, hey, John, but good. I saw John. I ran into John yesterday in a different place online, and he said he had a doctor's appointment this morning, but he would be here. So good. Glad you made it, John. So anyway, that's a picture of that original museum. But then
it looks like a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
It kind of does.
It needs a big old steeple on it, but yeah, that's a big old museum.
Yeah, well, it was pretty cool. And then, much to their chagrin, he moved. They decided to move it to Gainesville, Florida. And I don't remember if this is in the early 90s, but I don't see the date. Oh, well, that said 1976, but I swear I didn't think it was that early, but maybe it was. So this was an article that came out in the local paper of everybody moving it. And this is the front of it, or at least one angle in the Gainesville, Florida Museum. And two of the bear statues that were also on the other. Now, these are statues, but these actually are more or less replicas of two of the big bears that he had mounted in the museum. And something I've got and could not find, and I looked and looked this week, and I just couldn't find. We've got pictures still packed away. I went to this museum in 1993.
It's still open,
but it's not in the same place anymore. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, they moved it.
Yeah. But in Gainesville, Florida, we were going to Disney World with the kids for vacation, and we went here, and I've got pictures of the girls standing in front of that great big polar bear, the actual stuffed polar bear, and a big Kodiak, brown bear. And I couldn't find them in time to do this show. But anyway, I went to this museum on one of my Florida trips.
Good morning, Miss Shelley.
Hey, Shelley, welcome in. Good morning. And this was just another thing that came out about his manufacturing plant. This was him working, what amazes me is he had no formal training on how physics worked and geometry and all that stuff, but he could take it and figure it out. And that's
look at him. He's got a pencil and he's like, look, dude, you need to carve it off a little more here. You need to. I've been around those people my whole life. Like,
oh yeah, well, sure you have.
You whittle it away till it don't, all the parts that don't look like a bow. You whittle that part away.
Well, look there, Mark. That Kodiak, the year this picture was taken, that Kodiak bow right there was $59.50.
And it's about, I think it's darn near $1,000 now for that bow.
It probably is, because they still make.
I mean, for that, a new model of that bow.
Yeah. Is
about $1,000.
And
I hunted with that bow for decades.
Well, I happen to have one right here.
Well, I told you I gave mine to my buddy's son because I was building bows myself, and there it is.
This is a Bear Kodiak Hunter that I painted. I actually sat down this morning and took some acetone and cleaned all the paint off so we could see it. And you know, the all his bows at some point had this medallion in the riser, and this bow, and they always had on the side of the riser, but near the grip, it has a number which is probably the riser design number, because once they got to a point where they made these on a lathe, you know, 3 or 4 at a time, roughed them out. But it also has the AMO length of 60 inches.
Yep.
And 45 pounds. So this is probably the bow I'm going to try to start drawing and shooting again. This is probably the lightest bow I've got outside of this one. This other one I have laying here, which is one of the kid bows we were talking about. And this was a recurve. It is called the Little Bear. And this is only a 12-pound pull, but this is designed for kids, to get kids interested. And I bought this for my girls. And I've got a picture here in a minute I think I'm going to show of Jennifer shooting this very bow.
So he had a whole series of solid fiberglass bows when I was a boy. And you started out with the Blue Bear. He called it the Blue Bear. Then you got to Yellow Bear, which was a little heavier pull. And then you went to the Red Bear, which was about a 25-pound pull. And then from there, you just were supposed to graduate up to a real bow and go hunt. But I shot a bazillion arrows out of those 3 colored bows over the years.
Well, and if you ever went,
you know, my father ruined me. He was like, "Here, I bought you this bow," and I'm like, and I'm, you know, 6 maybe, and it was over for me.
and if you ever went to a camp, Boy Scouts,
My shoulders are ruined forever.
or maybe had archery in school, high school or middle school or whatever, chances are you shot with the bow either like that, one of the bear bows he's talking about, or other manufacturers also made them. I looked at a whole yesterday. I was looking through got the bow bug. I was looking at used bows on eBay, and somebody had a whole. Well, it might not have been eBay. It might have been on Facebook. They were saying, "What are these?" But they had a whole rack. I mean, 24 or more of those very bows of different weights and sizes, and different man. This guy had different manufacturers, but they were all that solid fiberglass bow that was made for that very purpose. And my first bow, my very first bow was a similar bow, but it was a Shakespeare.
Right.
And my mother got me that bow for my birthday
from Green Stamps.
From the Green Stamp store, sure did. And that was what got me started. And I was 8 or 9. And I was hooked after that. I used to shoot that thing till my fingers were raw. And
folks, I'm not exaggerating here. We could used to shoot sweet tarts out of the air.
Yeah, well, yeah, he did. I don't think I ever had one, but you and Brad used to.
I've hit so many nickels and so many sweet tarts out of the air.
And it can be done. And we used to shoot aerial targets a lot, but we'd get foam balls, you know, this size or so, or a piece of cardboard and flip it up in the air. And we'd shoot that with what we call flu arrows, foo arrows, whichever one they were, flu arrows, which had big feathers on them. So you could shoot them into the air, but they didn't go far. Once they had speed out for 50 feet or something, then they just kind of died off and fell to the ground. So you could pick them up. You didn't, because if you shoot a regular arrow up into the air and you don't hit something with it,
you're never going to see it again.
It goes for days and days and days. And but with flus, you could shoot birds and do the same thing. If you missed, you could go find your arrow, or if you hit. But I've told people this, and they don't believe it. They look at you like you've got 3 heads or something, but it's true. And we didn't invent that, or Mark didn't invent that. We watched other people do it.
Well, Fred, there's videos of Fred hunting pheasants,
Right.
and other people doing that.
So
And I can't remember that guy's name that was from. I think he was from Alabama.
yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name either.
He used to shoot aspirins out of the air all the time.
He did. He was a more contemporary trick shooter, if you will. Not that long. Well, not that long ago.
But it's no. I mean, if I could do it, it's not anything super special. It's
And it goes back.
you just gotta have muscle memory.
It's muscle memory and what Fred talked about when he snap shoots. Because what you got to do is focus on that point that
The
you're
spot. You got to pick a spot.
and you just pull back, and you, like Mark says, it's muscle memory. You pull back and release. And after you practice that for a while, you can hit smaller and smaller objects. It's amazing. I saw him flip nickels out of the
Unless it's an impala.
air.
And then if you pick a spot on an impala, he's not going to be anywhere near where you released your arrow when you release your arrow. I can tell you that for a fact.
It's called jumping the string.
Or ducking the string.
Yeah.
I've never seen animals that fast in my life. But
so anyway, here's some books. These are the books I know about Fred. Not auto, but a biography. Now, this field notes are things that he wrote. He did write that one. And these Archer's Bible and the World of Archer were things that he produced, again, to hand out and to, I would say, to sell bows, but it was more than that for him. It was
to sell the sport.
Yeah,
not to sell the sport, but to encourage the sport.
Another thing that he did that helped to sell the sport was he was one of the first people to do these videos as an outdoor, and he had a photographer that went with him, and
they were amazing.
Some of them were quite amazing, and there's some of them, and I've watched them. You can see a lot of these online now that are not, they have no sound. They're like a silent movie.
They're like black and white silent movies.
In fact, the first one, I think it's that.
Or as my daughter would say, a gray movie.
Gray movies, yeah. And these DVDs now, you can get those from Three Rivers Archery. They have that.
Oh, really? They've got that whole series?
And I think that's, I don't know for sure, but I think they said that's everything that he did. And the other great thing, and maybe one of the first places I ever saw Fred Bear, was on a show that was called The American Sportsman, which used to come on in the wintertime on Sunday afternoons.
It was a wonderful show.
And Fred Bear made several appearances on that show where they were out hunting something with his bow. And Kurt Gowdy wasn't the only.
I think that's where I saw the first pheasant hunting video where he was shooting pheasants from the air.
Yeah,
on the American Sportsman.
And those are online. If you ever want to look, if you ever want to see him do some of that, if you're ever curious at all. And I know everybody's not crazy about this kind of bow shooting like Mark and I were from kids. You can find all that stuff, pretty much all of it. And that was the end of that. And I don't know if that's him for sure, but I thought
that's Fred himself. That photo was always at the end of his books. I had them all.
Well, I did good then.
They always had him. He had that weird back quiver kind of thing going on, and that was always at the end of his books. And he's got that buck, like pulling that buck down that trail with like his bow.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting way to haul a deer out of the woods. I'd have took him apart, but back in those days, it might not have been legal to take him apart.
Possible. Yeah, that's possible. That's true.
Because God told you how to take them apart. They've got dotted lines to exactly how you take them apart.
Cut here.
And they're way out. They're way easier to carry out when you take them apart than it is
Yeah.
whole like that. But
so I had a couple of pictures I wanted to see if I can show. Let me see if I can pull these up. I think I can do this. Well, just like I would for the other, but how am I going to move this? It's in my way. Bump, 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 bump. Okay, here's one. It's not a great. Now, this is not a great picture. You got to remember, I shot these with a film camera, and the film for the size of the product I got at the time wasn't great for blowing up, but it's not bad. But you get the point here. And I just see something laying in the grass I didn't see before.
I don't see them at all.
Hang on, you're about to. Bum-ba-da-da.
There's a young Tim Pruitt and two young little girls playing with a bow and arrow.
Out in the backyard shooting at bow and arrow.
Were you at Smyrna still?
Yeah, that's Smyrna. That's where you came down. That's flat yard back to the creek and all that. And I don't know if we did this on purpose, but I thought the picture was kind of cool. I wish this was in good focus, but a sharp image. But that arrow in the ground kind of set that. And then I believe that's probably
look how black his hair used to be, folks.
Almost as black as it is now. As you can see, even when
mine was just as black. And look at us now.
Look at us now. It's hard living or wisdom. I don't know which. I see my bow laying on the ground there. I never noticed that before. Right there. Now, let's see if I can pull. Anyway, that's that little red bow I had out a while ago, and that's my daughter Jennifer shooting the bow, and the little one's Kelly. I don't know if she ever shot much. Jennifer liked it, and she did. She actually went hunting with me a time or two. She didn't actually carry a bow, but she went with me bow hunting. Let's see if I can pull it. I got a couple more that you will be interested in, I think.
I'm interested in that one.
Well, I know, but I mean others that you might be interested in. This one.
It's the same camo pattern.
Yeah, wearing the same camo shirt there because I used to wear those a lot too. In fact, this may have been made by my wife. Used to make me buffalo plaid shirts like this. So I don't know if this one is one she made or not, but it's a good possibility. But this is we were out probably just out looking at critters in general up near Percy Priest Lake. And what's really cool about this picture is the next picture. Hang on, let me make something smaller so I can. It keeps covering stuff up. Is the next picture I'm going to show you. Now that's Kelly with the monocular. Now Kelly, if you don't know, Kelly only has one usable eye, and so I bought her a monocular to use, and she did, and that's Jennifer probably holding a pair of Bushnell or something I had back then.
Kelly's using a knockler. You need to tell her that story.
Well, I will.
There ain't nothing about it other than she needs to know that story.
And you're getting ready.
Remember that guy had an eye over here and an eye over here. He was like an ungulate. Remember how mongoloid that dude looked? I'm sorry, folks, but this dude had an eye like on this side of his head and an eye over here.
But what was so funny was he
said, "I wish I had my knockler."
and this was in Arkansas, so
And it was in deep, dark Ozark, Arkansas, looking over Treat, the community of Treat down on Piney Creek, and he was he just comes slinking out of the woods on
Yeah,
us.
he did. Now, I want you to look at this picture. There's obviously a younger me who can actually walk. I wish I could walk that well now. And Jennifer up there walking ahead, but I want you to look at Kelly. And I mean, talk about attitude. Got that monocular flipped over her shoulder. I don't know, just like she's. I don't
Like, you guys go ahead. I'm
got this.
I'm covering your six.
Yeah, I just loved that. I saw that and I showed it to Brenda the other day.
He's walking, tail and Charlie, and like.
So I really thought that was cool. All right, I'm going to show you a picture you're going to remember. I believe this is that scene from that mountain where the Knockler guy came along. Maybe.
That is exactly the spot. That's Treat right there in the next photo.
I thought it was.
Yeah, and so that's the community folks in down in the deepest, darkest Ozarks that has no road in or out. The only way you can get to it is floating, or at that time, you could only float in or out of there.
Well, you probably told me that, but I'd forgotten.
And the dude that skulked upon us came out of the woods to the east, from the east, and he said, "That sure is a pretty sight down there, ain't it?" And we're like, "Yep, that's a pretty sight." And he goes, "I sure wish I had my knockler." And I started laughing because I was like, "Well, that's because you could only use a knockler. Your eyes are so far apart. A binocular wouldn't work." But
you didn't say that.
But I did not say that, and that's
that's
a big old mouth laying there on the ground.
Yeah, and this was one that we picked up while I was out there that trip.
A big old cottony mouth.
Look at him laying there all spread out and black and ugly.
And look, and like, "I will hurt you.
I will. Yes, I will bite you. Do not think I will not bite you, because I shall bite you."
Those are gorgeous photos. You got to send me these photos.
I will. I've got another one. I'll pop up here just in a minute, I think.
Holy buckets.
Tell me if you can. What is that, Mark? Is that a queen snake or a brown snake? It's a water snake. I probably took it on that same trip, but I don't remember for sure where I got it. But I took that picture. I'm gonna
have to do some studying on that one.
Me too, and I haven't been. I started looking it up the other day, and the picture.
It's not a queen snake, but I don't know what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's a water.
Which really disturbs me.
I started to say I think it's a water snake, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's not. Maybe I didn't take that down in there where we also found the cottony.
It sure looks like that country. I mean, the water and everything.
So, but I was trying to figure. I saw that and I thought, man, I got to figure this out. Maybe Mark will remember. But let me see what else I got. Now, the next one is not a real good.
What picture. It looks like is a ribbon snake, but I don't know if we ever found one of them or not. But
yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
this next picture is one I took. You never saw this. I thought this was fascinating at the time because I was standing there. I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but that picture, there's a little
fish with a snake.
And that little snake, which I'm going to tell you something, did not look big enough to eat that fish. He caught that fish in the cattails while I was standing beside one of my grandfather's ponds. And the girls might have been down there fishing. I know I had a couple of cousins that were down there fishing. And this started happening in the little cattail patch, and I caught it. Had my camera with me, and I got some pictures of it. And that fish was that snake was trying to eat that fish, and man, was he having a hard time getting that thing down. I just wasn't the right shape for him. I don't.
Well, I found a cottonmouth one time on. I'm trying to think of the creek. Might have been the Washita, not the Washita River, the Obed River. Big old cottonmouth. He was probably 5 feet long, great big thick one, like thick as your thigh, kind of a cottonmouth.
Yeah.
And he had caught a bullhead catfish.
Oh my goodness.
By the head and started swallowing it, and that bullhead stuck his spines right through the side of that cottonmouth's head.
Oh wow.
And they both died there together.
I'm sure they did. There wouldn't have been no getting away from that. All right, I got another one here. Let's see if this one pops up.
We've got out of the picture.
Oh, I got it. I got to present again. Okay. This one's not very big. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. That is you, my friend.
That's a skinny, dark-haired hunting deer, black-headed cowboy.
You got a boat back quiver on, and I believe this picture was taken in the.
That was in that country just west of Las Cruces.
Yeah, right. That's what was that called? Pretty Lady Mountains or something
where you were throwing rocks at me. You weren't throwing rocks at me. You were throwing rocks at a doe deer that had me pinned down.
Yes, you did.
And I could hear zoom. And I'm like, "Are you shooting arrow? We can't kill does."
This next picture isn't very good, but that's you walking out of that same. Yeah, later on
that's that slope, dude.
Yeah, it is, but we got split up. You were below me, and I was up higher.
Yeah, you were high, and you were like.
I saw that doe coming in on you, and I saw you coming, and I just sat there and watched because the whole thing unfolded there in front of me.
And she had me, and I froze like with my foot in the air. And you were like, and I hear zip, zip, zip. I'm like, "You're not shooting at that deer, are you?"
He didn't say it out loud.
I didn't say it out loud. That's just what I was thinking.
Here's another picture of that.
Those rocks were, you were zinging them, man.
Well, she was hiding behind the juniper tree, as I recall. And
she was.
And she was sitting there. I could see her. She was sitting there looking back and forth, trying to figure you out and trying to get you to move. And you were
stomping her feet and blowing and. Oh, prop-headed doe! Look at that! Look at that!
I think that's the same snake we had a minute ago. And just for the record, we
did catch him.
We didn't kill him. We just caught him and messed him a little bit. I don't know what this picture is. Oh, I know what this picture is.
I never killed a cottonmouth.
Two different things. There's a cottonmouth on that same cottonmouth on the left, but look here right here on the right, down at the base of that.
There's a lizard right there.
A fence. I think that's an eastern fence lizard, or that kind of lizard. But
yeah, it looks like a Scaloporus species. Cool.
And here's something that won't be fun. This is the kind of thing. This is how serious we were about some of this stuff. On the left, that's a picture. Might be you, might not be you. But that's a picture of a blind that I thought up in my head, and Brenda helped me make with camo netting. And that looks like a deer hunting picture because that's an orange vest behind it. But it could have just been a test sample. But you and I were behind that 1 year turkey hunting too, as I recall.
Yeah. Maybe even at Land Between the Lakes.
It was Land Between the Lakes. First time I ever was setting out. That was the first time I was ever setting out on the ground when daylight hit and they started gobbling off the roof. Man, that made my hair stand up. That was the most exciting thing I think I'd ever done. And we didn't even, well, we did have a couple of birds walk in, but I think they were hens, not.
Yeah.
But look, you know what that is on the right?
Looks like some kind of a schematic drawing.
That's the Zorn's fold up portable lock-in tree stand.
No shit.
Yeah, that I made and
Pardon
built.
my French. Excuse me, folks.
That's the drawing I made of that.
That's the one. So the one I had that was my favorite stand that I ever owned, that was one of those, I had hung up on a tree up on Dad's place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And some SOB came in there and stole it. I had it locked onto the tree. And he came in on our private property and stole my tree stand.
Yeah, I had one of mine stolen at Percy Priest Lake too. I had hung up in there. Nobody else was ever around in there bow hunting. And I went in one day. Actually might have been muzzleloading season. I went in, and I took a chance. I mean, it was public hunting. It was public land. But as you and I both would say, nobody steals another man's tree stand. That's just not.
Well, and remember, I had another one.
Yes.
That we were right behind the guy.
We chased him out of the mountains, but he beat us to the car.
He beat us to the car.
Had the gall to sit there and smoke cigarettes.
I would love to have caught that sunbuck.
Yeah, that made me. I was so upset about that. That made me angry. Now here's one I wanted you to see.
That might have been the day we were driving up to go in there, and I'm like, "Look, a bear."
Yeah, across the road in front of us.
And he was right in front of us. I'm like, "Look, a bear." And you're like, that was rather nonchalant.
Remember I told you I had a picture?
Holy buckets, what?
It's not a good picture, but that's your Uncle Dale. And Tommy, it looks like, in the back.
I'm there.
Yeah. And
when I was skinny as a dang rail.
That's Jennifer when she was
and Jennifer's there, and Dale's smoking a cigarette. He's there, and I think that's Tommy.
It looks more like Tommy than Brad, but you can't see him.
I think it was Tommy.
I'm going to go through more.
Although he didn't tan. Well, neither one of them did. It's got to be Tommy. But that's darn sure Dale.
That's up in West Virginia. Now I think this is a picture. Is that your old or
Good God Almighty! I'm like, I looked like a wastrel, and so did Dale.
Well, Dale always did.
Yep.
Well,
is that what?
Is that your truck? I don't know if that's your truck with that rack on it or not. But it almost has. Well, I don't know.
Where are we at?
Well, I think it's New Mexico, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that's my old green Chevy Love, dude.
Oh, okay. That's what
that camper shell. When I bought that truck from Curly Gostomski,
that's where it came from.
I left his place. Dad and Dale and Brad and I all went up together. I bought that truck and I drove out. I drove all the way through Dayton, Ohio, and out onto the highway. When I got on the highway, that camper shell just like left the truck.
Oh no.
and
down.
landed right in the middle of the lane and just kind of floated along like it was on an airframe or whatever. It just kind of didn't hurt it a bit. And Curly didn't have any bolts in it.
He just had it sitting there.
He just had it sitting on top with like the glue strip. So we had to rig a way to. I think Dad ran to the hardware store and got like 4 C clamps.
Well, that works because I had mine on C
And
clamp.
we tied her down. And I'm just like, oh my God, I could have killed somebody, you know. But that's that pickup truck. Yep.
Shelly,
That might be the only picture of that truck
it exists.
existing, except for the one where I had to like fix the frame on it. And Brad and I stripped her clear down, took the bed off of it, and welded the frame up, put big slabs of sheet metal on the frame because it was so rusted out. And I drove that truck to Belize.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I drove me and 2 buddies of mine and how we fit in it, I can't even imagine. We decided we were going to go. We had read all kind of Lefty Cray fly fishing stories, and we were going to go to Belize and go bonefish and permit and tarpon with our fly rods.
Did you get the fish?
And we drove all the way through Mexico to the Yucatan and went to Belize. And that truck was so ugly. Everybody was like, "Well, you're poorer than we are. We don't need to steal your stuff."
This guy, Shelly, I gotta apologize. First off, Eastern brown snake is one of the things I was going to suggest it might be earlier, and I didn't get to that. But
might be.
You may be right because that's one of the things I thought it might be. Now, second thing is she says, "Thanks for sharing the pictures." I want to apologize that these aren't better. These are nowhere near a Shelly Scott Starwalker quality picture. I got better as time went on, mind you. Got different camera equipment.
These are old pictures.
These are old, and they're. She went to Belize. She said she went to Belize to see the Mayan ruins at. I don't know. Is that Altanha?
Oh, that's cool. I just went down there. I went to Yucatan and went south onto the peninsula on the outside of Belize, like on the eastern coast of Belize.
Yeah.
And then we fished the sound side inside the sound. And it's the only place I've ever been where I would hook a fish and I'd get it about halfway in and a shark would eat it in half.
Look what John picked up out of that.
Oh no. John met Lefty Cray.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know him. I'd just been reading his articles about fly fishing.
And seeing him on TV. He was also on American Sportsman.
He was always on the American Sportsman. I wish I had met the man. Wow.
Anyway, let me see what else I got here that I was going to show you before I lose.
I thought you had a bunch of pictures of us hunting in the Palencios.
Well, I'm still working on that. I probably do. I just got to find them. This is mute swans propagating it with a place you don't want to know where that's at. Shelly might know where this is. That's the bridge.
That looks like Mackinac or somewhere.
That's on the UP side of Mackinac Bridge. And we walked up on these 2 swans, which at first we weren't sure what they were, and turns out they were mutes, but crocodiles, dolphins, and manatees. Oh my. Let's see what else I got here before we. I think I took this on on the beach at Lake Huron. So I believe those are
right before we got run over by a barge or something.
Lefty's. Let's see here what she said. Lefty's Deceiver is one of the most famous fly. Oh, okay.
I have a whole box of those, John. I've got a bunch of Lefty's Deceivers, still, and the other flies that worked really well. Golly, that was so much fun. I can't believe we didn't get killed.
Shelly, what a trip that must have been. How long did it take you to make that drive in that truck?
Oh, golly, it was like 2 days down, I think, 2 days back. We had
hard driving.
And that truck, it was a Chevy Love, and that was painted with a broom, literally. Because I know the guy that painted it, and he used a broom. But the problem down there was getting fuel.
Yeah.
And everything was a Pemex station. Until we got to Belize, and then it didn't seem to be that big a deal. But in Mexico, it was a big deal to just find fuel.
I know people have ridden motorcycles through there, and they've talked about having to actually buy it from people alongside the road who they've bought it somewhere and containered and poured in your car, your truck, your motorcycle, whatever.
But every gas station at that time, I don't know if it's still that way or not, but at that time there was only one gas station company in Mexico.
Yeah,
and it was a government-run Pemex, and they, if you spoke broken Spanish, it was hard. Sometimes it was kind of hard to get fuel.
Diana, thanks for coming in. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Glad you got to listen to more war stories.
Glad you got to, maybe got some rest or got to sleep for a couple hours or something. Shelly, that was one heck of a bridge, and I have to tell you, we just dodged a real bullet, because as we were driving, the reason we were here is we were going to the Boundary Waters for a canoe trip, and there was 4 of us in his dad's Ram pickup truck. I don't know what model that was.
It was a Dodge
Power wagon.
It was a power wagon.
Yeah,
maroon in color.
Mark and I might have been riding in the back, but we started.
I'll guarantee you and I were sitting in the back listening to Pat McManus stories.
We started to cross that bridge, and just as we got to where there was an exit that dropped off into Mackinac City there, just before you crossed it, the transmission went out on his truck. I mean, we were this close to being up on the middle of that bridge stranded, which I cannot imagine
what would have sucked.
And we had, this was pre-cell phones and stuff too. So I don't know what would have happened. I mean, we would have gotten help, I'm sure, but my goodness, that would have been a big deal, I think. But anyway, that was some bridge. I got some more pictures somewhere of the sun setting on that bridge. I thought were really cool at the time.
Mom and Dad have been back there probably 20 times.
Have they really?
And they go to Mackinac Island and go out there. Dad loves Mackinac Island because
it's pretty cool.
Most of the transportation is horseback, or in carriage. But look at that big old boy.
Well, I was trying to get that black squirrel, and I didn't have a very good long lens back then. And I've got more pictures of them somewhere, I'm quite sure. When it's not blown up, it looks a whole lot better. John said he had a 72 F-250 back in his Wyoming days. Yeah, I think you did, John. I don't know if I could find it right now.
A 1972 F-250. What a beautiful pickup truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you ever walked it, Shelley, because I know they do that every year.
Do you remember that truck that Troy's dad had? It was a Chevy.
No, not
It
really.
was like 4 on the column. I don't remember what year it was. It had to have been a 70 or 71, something like that.
I drove several and I owned a couple of trucks like that with the shifter on the tree.
And it was like, what a gorgeous old girl she was. Just that's the one where we were in when he and dad bought a clear cut. Guys had clear cut some woods, and dad and Jack bought all the tops for firewood.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when
And
you
that's when he cut my fingers damn near off with the chainsaw.
I didn't remember that part.
And Jack hauled me to the hospital as hard as he could go in that old pickup truck. And dad had to come in from work to get me. And the gal goes, well, those wounds are full of sawdust.
Man, no kidding.
And I'm like, and I guess that's a bad thing, huh? And she goes, yep. And she took that tobacco spit and started scrubbing with that brush down in whatever benzene or whatever that stuff was. It looked like tobacco spit.
No, and that when they start debriding or whatever.
And I was just like, ah! Look at that beautiful bird.
I don't know that they did any pub crawling, Shelley. They weren't. I don't think your mom or dad probably don't do that I'm aware of. They don't really drink or didn't much anyway.
My
Huh?
dad or her
Oh,
husband.
I think she's asking if they like to pub crawl on Mackinac Island because that's one of the things that people do there.
No, they don't. Neither one of them imbibe.
I thought these birds were just so pretty.
Is that in the boundary waters?
Yeah, that was one I walked up on, and he or she sat there. I'm not sure if you can sex them by looking at them or not, but they were on a nest. If you remember, we saw quite a few that still had chicks already hatched out, and they rode around on the backs of the adults.
I can still remember us watching. I don't know if they were golden eyes or wood ducks that come bailing out of a tree.
Yeah.
In one of the bays that we caught a lot of fish in, the bay that Dad caught the biggest pike in.
Was that when we were camping on the island?
And they bailed out of the tree and went into the water with Mom and started swimming across that bay, and only like 6 of them made it to the bank because the pike were eating them.
That water was full of big pike. Yeah, I got a couple. I've got pictures of them somewhere with the chicks on the back, riding on the backs of the adults.
Oh, you mean loons?
Loons, yes,
Yeah.
loons. And I just thought that was the coolest thing.
What a gorgeous bird. We have tons of them out here. We get so here in just probably not too long from now, we'll have hundreds of them on Flaming Gorge Reservoir.
Yeah.
Hundreds of them.
So they
all kind of migrate up together, and it's just like, good God, look at all the loons. What a beautiful bird.
I just thought they were amazing. Oh, I took this when we were up there, Shelley, on the
Oh, there's a lady slipper.
Yeah, those were not uncommon in that area where we were at. We were just there visiting.
That was the spot across the reservoir on the just
Reservoir Lake.
kind of northwest of the bridge at Mackinac,
Yeah, right, exactly on the UP
where we found those fish heads like this long,
that were just left there to
big
ruin.
lake trout heads that were giant.
Let me turn that different shades of gray. And I got this one. I'm pretty sure this is off the end of that bridge too. Looking west, obviously, and that peninsula stuck out there. It's also on the upper side. I got one more I want to show. Can you see it? You know where that's at? Well, I mean, you probably do if you think about it for a minute. That's on Mackinac. That's at
the museum, isn't it?
the museum or whatever. That's a Hudson Bay cargo canoe. It's longer than it looks in this picture, if I recall. And
Who's that dumbass in moccasins?
well, that's the only one person I know that wears moccasins all the time, and obviously has for years. That looks like
Got one right now.
like that right now. That almost looks like tyranny moccasins, but they may not be.
They wouldn't have been by that point.
Shelly, I think so, but I'll have to go back and look. Honestly, at the time, we didn't know. I'm sure we did. I mean, we were out there because we could. I mean, it was open and we could walk around and look. We were basically exploring and killing time because the truck was in the shop, and we were there. We spent.
We didn't have any options.
Yeah, we really didn't have any options. We were there about 3 days, and we stayed in the hotel the first night while we were trying to figure out getting the truck situated. They towed the truck down to Sheboygan, as I recall.
Yep.
The Dodge dealership down there, and they fixed it. And then we camped 1 or 2 nights over on the Lake Huron side in a campground where you could see the island across the water. And that's where Mark was saying we paddled out in the canoe and looked up, and here comes this ocean looking giant ship. And that wasn't something we thought we ought to be out there in a canoe around.
I still remember.
That was a surprise. Okay. That's all the pictures I had for today. But I thought you might appreciate getting to see it.
I appreciated them all, buddy.
Because I had a couple there that like that picture of Dale.
Makes me feel young again.
I wanted you to see that one because Dale was with messing around there. They were building a swing for
Jennifer.
Yeah. Yep.
Tommy and Dale were building that swing for Jennifer.
So Shelly, how far from didn't you live on the south side of the bridge, or were you actually in the UP? I was thinking you lived down towards Sheboygan or somewhere in that area. So, I figured you were in that part of the country a lot. Now, I wish I could say that my photographs are anywhere near as nice as the ones you did.
They're yeah.
I hope you're still doing it.
I don't know if that was a wildlife refuge then or not.
I don't remember either. This was in 1980.
It was like 1980.
Well, it was 1980, mid 80s, maybe
84, 85,
somewhere
in there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, by Sheboygan. I tell you what got that started for me was in high school. I picked up a National Geographic book that was all about the Boundary Waters canoe area. I absolutely fell in love with that whole area and the photographs in that book. And I just knew someday I wanted to go up there, and we went. I'd love to be able to say I could go again, but I know it'll probably never happen.
And we enjoyed ourselves thoroughly.
We did. We had a grand old time living wild and free. We paddled a lot.
That was a good spot.
Maple bacon, buddy. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk one night this week. And take care. Hope you have a great weekend. The Wildlife Refuge is past Thoughwe State Forest. I do remember going through there. What, Shelley, what we did from there?
That would be Hiawatha, buddy.
Hiawatha, I'm sorry. We crossed, what did I say?
You said Hiawatha.
Oh, I was probably thinking Hiawassee, which we have down here. We crossed the bridge and then went across.
We just went to the north. We just went to the west after we crossed the bridge,
Yeah,
and just it was just right there, like a half mile away.
But we eventually crossed the bridge and went across the UP to Wisconsin and across
all the way. Yeah,
Minnesota. And for some reason, I want to say that was Highway 2 or US 2 that crosses there, but I may be wrong about that.
and remember, then when we came home, we went through Chicago.
Yeah, I remember.
What a miserable. We were reading Pat McManus then, I'll guarantee you. Yeah. We weren't listening to, we were reading.
Yeah, well, listening to one of us reading it.
Exactly. That was a miserable stretch of highway.
Yeah, that was
those toll roads and all that BS that them people do. Yeah. Why should you have to pay money to drive on your own road?
It's true, Shelley. That's why we went that way on the way up. We wanted to go through there and see that country, and it was a cool trip. But I do remember at some point we went through a wildlife refuge or a state forest or something up there. I'd have to get a map out and study it just a little bit. But I just remember that being a really neat.
I wish I knew we were going to talk about this because I got a very heavily used map of the boundary waters.
I got one too.
That I would have had out.
Well, I
would have said we started out here at Ely and we went over here and we got a tow up to this lake and we went over here to this lake. And we maybe trespassed into Canada a little bit, and we made some Boy Scouts mad because we were sailing and they weren't.
They were paddling, and we had two canoes, and we lashed our canoes together with our paddles. Using
took a Vietnam poncho.
We took a Vietnam air poncho and made a sail out of it, and we sailed out across. I think it's Ensign Lake.
Forever.
For a long way.
For miles.
We made up a lot of time that way. And we passed those scouts and they were like, hey, you can't look at those guys are cheating. that kind of talk.
As I recall, one of them said, I wish we'd have thought of that.
Yeah. Shelley, one of my mentors from my work after I got out of school and I worked with for 20 years or so, Mr. Steve Cottrell, who I've spoken of before. He went to school for his he got his undergraduate degrees at Tennessee Tech, and then he went to Michigan State to work on his funny thing. He was at registered at Michigan State. And he spent time up there, but his project was down here.
Perfect.
But what he did learn was he loved to go up there and grouse hunt in the UP, and he did that. He and his father did that for years and years, and he's regaled me with many a story about spending time in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He really liked that part of the state, and him and his dad always had bird dogs, and so they'd take their bird dogs up there and invariably pull porcupine quills out of their mouth. Almost always, and actually he told me he had to find a vet to do that because he didn't know you could pull them out, and then later on he met I don't know if it was like a forest ranger or a wildlife guy who said, "Here, let me show you how to do that," and sat there and pulled all the barbs out of his dog's mouth,
Just
which
pop them out.
Mark is not a pleasant job.
You can get bitten.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
And I never blame my dogs when they snap at me when I'm pulling quills, because it hurts, I'm
Oh,
sure.
it's gotta hurt.
Well, I get them in me occasionally, and I don't get them in my mouth though, but I've had several in me, and they hurt.
I'm sure you've had plenty of them in your fingers.
We as a matter of fact, this last little deal we had go on, which was with the juvenile porcupine, which have little bitty tiny quills about this long.
Wow.
And they killed it because I have it now. I have what remains of it. And
Which one of the dogs got it?
well, Penny had the most quills in her.
Oh,
And then Boudreaux just kept coming back with quills in him. And I'm like, where in the heck are you getting these? He'd come back and he'd have like 8 or 10 in his back. And I'm like, I don't even see how that's happening. Well, he was rolling in this dead porcupine.
That's what I was getting ready to say. He was rolling.
And Caitlin went out and found the porky and brought him in so I could salvage some quills. But yeah, Penny must have killed him.
Yeah, well,
he was just a little tiny porcupine. And
how many do they usually have in a season?
How many what?
Small little porkies when they give birth. Is it just one or two? Just one? Okay.
Yeah, they just have a single young, and I mean,
I didn't think you would have.
Think about how that would feel.
I can't imagine.
When they come out, they're soft. They're totally like not. They don't even have good quills till they're 3 or 4 or 5 months old.
I guess they would have to, which is.
I found one sitting on a log one day, and he was he just was sitting there, and I walked over and picked him up, and he was just like silk. He didn't have any quills at all, almost none. And it was just, what a nice little animal. I'm sorry that my dog killed that porcupine, but maybe an eagle caught it and dropped it.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened.
But Penny had them all in her muzzle and her mouth. So I suspect that she killed it.
Yeah, I'd say you're right.
But
well, fortunately,
that's what dogs do sometimes.
Yeah, they do, and for some reason they don't seem to learn. Usually, they go back for seconds.
Well, and that's all my hounds, they were terrible. I had one female hound that never got one quill in her entire life, and her brother, he would get them so bad, like his whole face would be. He'd look like those pit bulls that get into him.
Like Dr.
And he never learned. He'd just get madder and madder. Every time he saw one, it was like,
it seemed like they go back for revenge. But
game's on, dude. And he'd run right back in there and get a bunch of quills in his face. They're funny.
And then the other, I don't know anybody's left in here besides Shelley, maybe Brenda, but Fishers, I think it's Fishers, right? Or Martins that eat.
Fishers eat them.
Yeah, they flip them over and eat them from the belly side up.
And mountain lions do too.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, and cats do too, which is pretty smart, I guess.
Well, I never once, I checked in hundreds of mountain lions in my career, and I never checked a mountain lion in that didn't have a few porcupine quills in it somewhere.
I wonder how they avoid getting them in and them working, back into their brain.
And I think it kills them occasionally.
I'm sure it does. It almost has to. Because
it does that to dogs. So domestic dogs, have that problem. I can't imagine that a mountain lion or a bobcat or whatever wouldn't have a different experience.
You'd think
Fishers seem to be able. They figured it out.
yeah. And that's
They're a lot smaller than like an adult porcupine.
yeah.
So, I mean, they're a big old weasel, but they're not the size of a river otter. They're
Right, but they're more.
they're built just like a marten, only a big black marten.
You're talking about a fisher. Okay, I thought you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fisher.
Porkies are like built, they're like a tank with quills.
They're kind of like an armored groundhog in a way.
Exactly, only even beefier. But
I was surprised to learn that you had them down in your little patch of woods. Is that your daughter?
who?
I thought somebody walked by. I was gonna say hi if it was her.
Nobody walked by. Did
Okay.
you just see Lillian,
Could have been.
our ghost?
Could have been. Maybe that's what it was.
If you saw Lillian, good luck to you. Maybe she'll poltergeist you and not me.
No, I'd be, if I just saw her on the screen, I'd be kind of happy about that. But otherwise, no. You can keep her. She didn't come home with me when I flew back last time.
She followed my wife all the way across the state.
Hey, I have a question. Speaking of
my wife.
Well, yeah.
And my daughter occasionally, and then there's weird things that happens. But I was getting pulled out of bed one night by my left arm.
Oh, were you?
I sleep on the left side of the bed, and I was getting kind of pulled out of bed at night, and I'm like, what in the hell? I got up fighting.
Really?
And there was nothing there to fight.
Oh man. Now, that'd probably have me sleeping.
And so that spooked me a little bit. I'm like, well, maybe Lillian is real.
Well, speaking of that, because I have another line of inquiry, but has your lodge come in?
Not yet. Okay. No, it'll be a few weeks.
Oh, okay. Because I got to get out there when you.
Yeah, because you need to come out here and skin some poles.
Yeah. Well, if I can, I shall.
Well, you can sit down and skin some poles. I'll cut them. I'll lop all the limbs off, and you can strip them.
Well, if they're still fairly green and fresh, it ought to pop off fairly easy. It'd be sticky.
It will. It'll just come right off. You'll be able to just take the draw knife and do one little sliver, and they'll just pop off of there. But you'll get all the sap on you.
Yeah, I know. I realize it's going to be sticky. That'd be about the next. I bet that's about as bad as sucker and tobacco.
Oh, it's just like it.
I heard somebody actually talking about it.
And nobody understands that, but we know about it.
Yeah, there's a good. Have you heard the story on Meat Eater? The rendered Bear Grease actually rendered. Well, it might just be the Bear Grease show where they talk about the riders, the night riders, and the tobacco wars in Western Kentucky and Western Tennessee.
Oh, I haven't listened to that one yet.
There's at least 2 episodes of it. I just started it, and I did not realize.
Is it on his channel?
Yeah, it's on the podcast. I don't know if they've got them all. They talk about it on one of his online YouTube channels, but they didn't do the whole show. The whole shows may just be on Bear Grease, not Bear Grease rendered.
Got it.
Which I think are just podcasts. I don't know if those are all videotaped, but I didn't know that the Night Rider thing, at least in their way, was about tobacco wars. I didn't realize that. I thought that all went back to Forrest or Bedford or not. Yeah, Nathan Bedford Forrest and his Night Riders, which was a whole different thing.
Right.
than these guys.
Did you get the Long Hunters?
No, not the book or
The audio book from Ranella and
I have not yet,
Clay Newcomb.
but I will.
Yeah, you need to, dude.
Oh yeah, I want to.
It's our people.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
seriously.
And they're coming out with another one, the Mountain
Well,
Men.
they've already come out with the Mountain
They've
Men.
already done it. Well,
And I haven't started it yet, but my son keeps aggravating me about, you need to get that one started too. Like, you'll love it.
I need to do that. I'm glad you reminded me of that, actually. I've got some credits I need to use anyway.
Well, one credit for the Long Hunters and one credit for the Mountain Men. I have them both. I just haven't. I've only listened to the Long Hunters, but
I'll be getting that because
they're definitely our people.
I'll be getting them. I'm glad you said that because I'll tell you what I'll do right now. I'm gonna make a note so I don't forget again. I meant to look that up.
But it just amazes me that like how much humans in those days relied on wildlife as a source of income. That it was, they were sending thousands of pounds of whitetail skins to England.
I didn't realize that.
Thousands and thousands of pounds. And the most valuable skins that you could buy in England were called French. I can't remember what they called it, but they were basically skins that privateers stole from the French at sea.
Yeah.
And shipped to, and then like, oh, we got a bunch of deer skins now, and took them to England, and they were more valuable than just a regular hide that like an Indian a brain tanned or something. The ones that they stole from the French were more valuable. And I'm like, it's just a deer hide. That's what people were wearing every day. You know, men in particular were wearing that every day, like a blue jeans, you know.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
They were wearing like knee length breeches made out of deer skin.
I got the first one. I hit it and there it is.
You got it, man.
So I'll get that one. I'll be listening to that soon.
You'll be sucked into that, dude.
I'm listening
to fascinating, and Steve does part of it, and then Clay does part of it, and it just works because like you got this Southern boy like talking during part of it, and most of the people they're talking about were Southern men, so I don't know if they talked Southern then or not, but well, I mean, Boone was from Pennsylvania and that country. I can't imagine he was a.
Bye, Shelley. Thanks for coming by. You have a great weekend too.
Sorry to be rambling, but
no, I just happened to see she was. I hope we didn't miss her, but she'll know we said bye anyway. No, I'm looking forward. I want to read it. I'm just about finished with listening to. I'm reading something else, but I'm just about finished with Shelby Foote's first book about the Civil War.
Oh my!
I don't know how many books he wrote, but he wrote a series called The Civil War, a narrative, and there's 2 or 3 volumes of it, I think. And I'm on.
He was the man.
He was the man. That's why I wanted to listen to it. If he tells it, then I believe it's true, and I've learned a lot that I did not know, and I feel confident that when he did this, he researched everything.
Shelley's singing Fred Bear. I assume that's the
Ted Nugent song, probably.
Ted Nugent song. Yep, that's the guy.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I should have mentioned that.
That's the guy.
He evidently spent a fair bit of time with Fred.
Well, they're from the same part of the world, sort of.
Yeah. Now I thought Ted Nugent got a little bit gonzo after a while, but yeah, he started out in the right place.
He's still a pretty fine hunter.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
He's still one of our people, even though if he goes a little gonzo, he's still one of our people.
Well, you know what I mean. Some of those guys, just not just him, but some of those guys, once they started doing videos and stuff, just went. I don't know. I thought they just took some of that too far, but that's just my opinion, not necessarily.
If I could swing across the stage on like some electrical wires, I would too.
Well, I wasn't talking about that part, but yeah, me too. I probably would too. I was just talking about his hunting videos.
But anyway.
Anyhow.
All right, my brother. I'm going to leave.
And do what?
I'm going to take off.
Well, I need to take off too and probably take a nap since I hadn't slept much.
I want to go outside and build a round corral, but that ain't going to happen because the wind's screaming like 60 miles an hour. So
you already got all the panels?
I got the panels. I just need to reassemble them so I can start working that filly more.
Oh, okay. You're okay for that. Motor City Madman. That's right, Shelley.
And I just can't stand to go out and work in 60-mile-an-hour winds when it's cold. When it's cold,
I probably couldn't even stand.
Not anymore. It didn't used to bother me so much, but it does now.
All right. Well, you take care, my brother. We'll talk in a few days or something.
Hey, thanks for sharing the photos. That was cool.
Oh, God, I'll send them to you.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Later.
Bye, everybody. If anybody's left, have a great weekend. Thanks for being here. Love y'all. Take care.